Well, hello and welcome to Fairly Critical's review of The Gray Man. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to spend with us. We really appreciate it, and thank you so much for making the last review we made of Thor: Love and Thunder so successful. It's been great to see that get the amount of views that it has, and we've already got 15 subscribers and a handful of likes, so thank you guys so much for that. Also, to the person who commented about my beard, I do appreciate those remarks. And of course, while I've never seen you before, I compliment you on your beauty and striking features, including the lack of facial hair. So thank you very much. Before we get started, we do have a couple of pieces of information about the channel for you guys. Starting next week, we are going to go to releasing videos on a weekly basis. We will keep the schedule of bi-weekly reviews for movies and TV channels, and then we'll stagger in a couple smaller videos like lists, analysis, comparisons, kind of stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Next week, we're going to put forth a video entitled 5 Good Things and 5 Bad Things about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I'm very excited about that. I hope you guys are as well. If you do like our content, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, as well as the like button, but most importantly, to share it with anyone in your life that you think might enjoy our content and want to be a part of this. So I hope that you guys are able to do that. And again, thank you guys for being here. Without further ado, let's begin. The Gray Man is a spy thriller. Actually, I don't know if I'd say thriller. It's more of just an action movie. I did, when I first saw the trailers for it, think it was going to be a more cloak and dagger kind of feel, kind of like the Jason Bourne movies, or Captain America: The Winter Soldier, or 3 Days of the Condor, or something like that. But really, it is just a straight up action film with a cloak and dagger setting to it. Excuse me. The main plot is that Ryan Gosling's character, a character by the name of Sierra 6, is a CIA assassin who goes off the reservation, and another former CIA agent turned freelance sociopath, or psychopath rather, is sent to hunt him down. Very simple premise, and one that they play pretty well with. The story is actually pretty good. It's not breaking any ground. There's nothing really original to it, but it's a fun little story, and the movie ends up being a good little action film. Just kind of pick up some popcorn and eat too. The action sequences are pretty entertaining. The fight scenes are well choreographed. The gun battles are also well choreographed. You really kind of get the sense that everyone who was a part of the gunfights was either trained by a police force or some type of military training or something like that, which to me is really, really important, because it makes the threat seem credible. When they're moving kind of tactically and using cover, and they're laying down covering fire to before they maneuver, trying to get into position. That's important because it lets you know that the threat is credible, that there is a threat to the main character, and that the main character has to actually, be skilled in order to get out of that situation. I always find it funny whenever you watch like Star Wars, especially the last 3 Star Wars films, where all the stormtroopers are just running out from cover with no suppressing fire or anything, and everyone's like, "Oh man, they're getting shot by the dozens." Well, I wonder why. Wonder if like someone sat back there and actually suppressed the enemy fire, if maybe 1 or 2 of them might get to the objective. But no, let's just all run out there all at once and get mowed down by these rebels. So I really appreciated that. They were all very well staged, and the action was high octane. The acting is superb. It was really, really good. Gosling is, of course, the main character, who's a character Sierra 6, is a jaded, experienced assassin. He's the perfect balance between personable yet detached. I really enjoyed his take on the character, is kind of just this glib, this glib guy who just didn't really care what was going on around him. He just had a job to do, but he did have a handful of firm attachments that he wanted to make sure ended up being protected. When I was watching it, it made me feel, or it gave me vibes of his character from 2011's Drive. He plays a very kind of similar character, but that one had a little bit more complexity to it. It was a little more deeper character. This character is just a pretty simple one-track mindset character. It's just, I've got a job, I'm going to go do that job. And it plays well in this world of kind of amoralistic spies and assassins, so I really enjoyed it. Chris Evans, my boy Captain America, plays a very charismatic psychopath, and he is phenomenal in it. Psychopathic characters can always be a little bit difficult to write. The reason being, for a psychopath really has two defining traits. If you research this kind of psychological studies into what we classify as psychopaths, they're very manipulative, but so is a sociopath. What makes a psychopath different from a sociopath is the impulsiveness that they have. They don't really have very good self-restraint. It's very much just, you're in the way of something that I want and I'm going to remove you. And so that can be very difficult to write, because in a world where there should be consequences, if you have a character just going around doing whatever they want, no matter the consequences, it's just difficult to write them. But I think the writing for him was very, very good, and his charismatic acting talent really brought it to life. It kind of reminded me of a cross between Netflix's Bullseye, the Bullseye from the Netflix Daredevil show, and Villanelle from Killing Eve, which is a BBC show. If you were to put those two together, it was more or less, you get Chris Evans, or Chris Evans' character rather. So I really enjoyed his character. He made for an excellent villain opposite Gosling's jaded but heart of gold assassin. So it was very entertaining. Ana de Armas is also in this movie, and I was very excited to see that she would be a part of it with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. So she was in 2017's Blade Runner 2049. She was Ryan Gosling's AI wife / partner, and they had tremendous chemistry. They made an excellent couple. And then in 2019's Knives Out, she played the protagonist to Chris Evans' villain in that movie. And again, they both had strong charisma and strong chemistry on set. So when all three of them were in this movie, I thought that was going to be so cool. We didn't really get a whole lot of moments where she was interacting with the two of them, at least not for dramatic effect. She does share a lot of screen time with Ryan Gosling's character, and they have some good moments, but it's not quite as dramatically appealing as their dynamic was in Blade Runner 2049. Their characters just have a very different dynamic, and I'll be honest, I don't like, well, I don't know if I would say she was underused. Her character is just very different than the roles that I'm used to seeing her in. She was very much more of an action heroine in this movie. And she did a good job. I don't want to say that she didn't do a good job. She did. It's just, she's got a lot of acting talent to provide like sincere moments and sincere dramatic weight to scenes, and we just didn't get that in this movie, which we'll talk about a little bit more. I don't think that she was meant to. So it's not a mark on her at all. I just, I was kind of waiting for it and I never really got it. But what it makes me think, for things that we'll talk about later on, especially in the spoiler section, that they're setting this up to be at least a sequel, maybe even a franchise, maybe even go, 3+ movies deep into this movie, or into this plot line, into this world, which I would like to see. I would love to see a sequel to this movie. I did enjoy it. But yeah, they definitely seem to set some things up with her that didn't really get paid off in this film, which makes me think that they're setting them up for another time. Those are the three main characters. There is a ton of supporting cast in this. There's 3 main characters, and then there's 4 or 5 supporting cast members, and they do a great job. The supporting cast is almost as good as the main cast. Callan Mulvey, who you may remember from Captain America the Winter Soldier. He was also in the second 300 movie. I can't remember what that one was called. But he and Alfre Woodard continued the tradition of the Russo brothers who directed this film, using actors and actresses from prior projects and giving them either supporting roles or cameos in their current projects. Alfre Woodard comes from Captain America Civil War. You may also remember her from shows like Luke Cage, the Netflix series Luke Cage. She has a very big role in that. She was also in 12 Years a Slave, and she does a great job. I'm giving her a little extra attention here because she's from my home state of Oklahoma, so I always like seeing her and stuff because it gives me a little Oklahoma pride whenever I see her in something. And she did a great job in this movie. When she was on screen with Gosling, it really gave Gosling a moment of emotional connection that most of the film you don't see him make with other characters. So I was very pleased with that. She really supported Gosling's development as a character. Acting veteran Billy Bob Thornton comes into the game. He's been in movies for a long time, and he did a pretty good job in this one too. His character recruits Ryan Gosling's character and acts more of like a mentor to him. It's stated outright that he's the closest thing that Ryan Gosling's character has to family, and I did like his portrayal of that. He's very just kind of no nonsense, plain faced, this is just how things are type of character. I did have an issue with his character just kind of rolling over. So without getting too much into the spoiler section, we'll get into the spoiler section later, but we'll talk about it more in detail. But essentially, the plot needed to move forward. His character had to basically endanger Ryan Gosling's character not once but twice. And I would have liked to. When he did it, it was just very much, I'm going to give this guy what he wants, even though it might kill my protege. And I'm sure it was difficult for his character, but he didn't really portray how difficult it was. I would have preferred him to give a little bit more in those circumstances. But the rest of the time, he's very good. When he was just meant to be the guy that, the old experienced CIA veteran, he was very good at that role. He was very believable. So it was great, and he provided a lot of really good character dialogue between both Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling's characters. So it was really strong all along. I'm probably going to massacre this name, but Regé-Jean Page is also in this film. I had never seen him in any other projects before. This is the first time that I have seen him, and he did a good job because I hated him from start to finish. He plays essentially not the main villain, that's Chris Evans, but kind of the antagonist behind Chris Evans, and he really makes you dislike him from the moment you first meet him to the moment the movie ends. So props to him for seeing that. I do look forward, if they do in fact make this into a sequel and into a franchise, I do in fact look forward to seeing more of him moving forward. He'll probably be the main antagonist of the next movie with how things are being set up. So I like it. He is particularly set against Ana de Armas' character. I think that those two will be the driving forces of the next movie if they end up going with it. Jessica Henwick also gives a strong performance. I really like Jessica Henwick. If you have seen the Netflix show Iron Fist, which was just so bad, it was really, really bad, but Jessica Henwick was by far the best in that whole show. She was the best actress of the whole show. Her character was probably the most compelling of the whole show, so she was a very big bright spot in that narrative in those 2 seasons that Iron Fist got before Netflix said we're not going to make these shows anymore because Disney Plus came out. She did a great job. I really liked her. Again, one of the more compelling characters, one of the more conflicted characters in the show, where she's definitely helping Chris Evans and Regé-Jean Page. Again, I'm probably massacring that. I apologize if anyone sees this or knows. If you guys know how to pronounce this, put it down in the comments for me so I can know. It's got a French accent, but the last name is not French, so I don't know how, if it's supposed to be just Rige or if it's Rige, kind of like the French accent in count. So let me know what how to really pronounce that if you guys know. But Jessica Henwick is on their side, but definitely conflicted about what they're doing. Not really morally. She's more or less just kind of concerned that they're going to get in trouble for it. So she's not really the morally correct gray area of it. She's just very much the, I don't want to get in trouble for this area. So she's also kind of a sociopath. Even though she complains about Evan's character being a sociopath, she's right up there. I mean, you're only worried about the consequences. You're not actually caring about what's right or wrong. But she gives a really strong performance. They also kind of set her up for more things moving forward. So I'd be happy to see her come back. And a final shout out to Julie Butters. She plays Claire, which is the niece of Thornton's character. Whenever she's a child actor, whenever you have these action films, I feel like child actors are a flip of the coin, whether they're good or bad. But she squarely lands on heads. Her chemistry with Ryan Gosling's character is phenomenal. I believed everything that she was trying to convey. There was no overacting or underacting. She did a pretty good job, and I appreciated their dynamic. So what she brought to the screen was strong. So good for you, Claire Butters, or not Claire Butters. Claire's your character's name. Good for you, Julie Butters. Thank you very much. Let's talk about the pacing for a second. This film is incredibly fast-paced. I mean, it's just, on to the next. There is a lot that happens in this movie. There's a lot of there's a lot of like side stories that are not side stories, but there's a lot of elements to the story that are interwoven with each other, and it's a lot, and a lot of it is just really to get us from non-action sequence to action sequence. And normally I complain about that. Normally I appreciate a slower burning film, or at least a good balance between action sequences and slowed down dialogue scenes, where we get to see the effect on characters. I'm going to give this movie a pass, though, because there really wasn't a grander theme to explore here. There's no grander themes of love and loss or philosophies or anything that the film really needs to convey. The characters really are kind of non-emotional. They're really just kind of emotional. And so there's really not a need to slow everything down and give them time to digest what's really happening. So I'm going to give them a pass for that one. I did enjoy it. Besides that, at its core, the movie's just a straightforward action film, and it's good. It's a good action film. So I'm gonna let them go on that one. It's not gonna win any awards or anything like that. But if you're just looking for a film to pop some popcorn to and spend a couple hours just enjoying your night or your afternoon or whatever, it's a good film. I do have some directing critiques, and I do like the Russo brothers, but there was a couple things on here that I was just like, okay, come on, guys, you can do better than that. For the biggest critique I have is just how many cuts there were in the action sequences. I mean, it was like 10 cuts every 6 seconds, where they were just, it seemed like every other punch you were seeing a different angle of the fight. And they weren't just, left, right, left, right. No, it was like left, right, up here, over here, getting an underneath shot. I mean, it was all over the place. And that was most of the cutscenes. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen. I've seen a movie that was like 200 cuts in like 20 seconds. This was not nearly, it was not the worst I've ever seen. It was just a little bit more confusing to watch. It's just, I think sometimes directors do this because they think that making cuts all over the place and in quick succession makes the scene feel more intense. The scene doesn't feel any more intense. It just feels more confusing. I understand what's happening. It's already intense. There's a guy trying to kill Ryan Gosling's character, and he's already been injured from the 10 other guys that he had to fight. I don't need to see all these different angles. Just slow it down a little bit. Maybe a cut every 2 seconds instead of every 1.5 second would have been fine. But it's just, you know, if you're prone to motion sickness, I think that you probably would have had an issue with this. But it's okay. It's like I said, it's not the worst I've ever seen. It's just if I'm gonna comment on something, that's what I would really comment on. Similarly, you you don't have to put in big bold letters at the center of your screen that we're in a new city every time you go to a new city, especially when you jumped like 3 locations in 5 minutes. Um, it was very distracting because you'd start off in and Ryan Gosling's in Bangkok, and then he'd make a phone call to Thornton's character, who's in some city in Azerbaijan. I don't know. And then it would cut to Langley or Washington, which I think it was Langley, whichever one that Carmichael was in at the time. And he'd make a phone call to Evan's character, who was in Monaco, and it was just over and over again. It was just like we're going in, we're in this city now, and then we're in this city now, and then this character's in this city now, and you just really didn't need to do that. There were a handful of times that they would tell you that someone was in a city, and it made zero difference whether they were in that city or not. It made no difference whether they were in the city that Ryan Gosling was in or they were somewhere else, and they still did the full Monaco. And it was just, ooh, it was very distracting. It's like being in a theater and then a guy who sits in front of you keeps having to adjust his seat, and he keeps man, I hope everyone behind me is okay, can see past my head, my bald head. And it was just kind of annoying. So you don't have to do that. If you want to do that, maybe just put it off to the side of the screen, Berlin or something like that. But no, they had it big and bold. There was also a couple of times where the characters legitimately told us where they were going to be in the next scene. Like there was without going into spoilers, there's like Billy Bob Thornton's character told Gosling's character to go to this place outside of Bangkok and have a plane waiting for him. And then like 2 minutes later, Ryan Gosling shows up at that place, and it's like city outside Bangkok. Like, I mean, it had the real city, but still, it was like, yeah, I know. You told me that's where you're going. I trusted you. I didn't need that. There was a couple times where they said that. It's like Carmichael told Danny Miranda, which is Ana de Armas' character, you're coming to Berlin. And then like 20 minutes later, which was a long stretch of the movie, by the way, she was not in the movie for like a 20-minute stretch. And then it's just like, Berlin. I'm like, yeah, I know. You told me that's where she was going to be. So we trust you. You don't have to do that. And then finally, there was a scene, without going into spoilers, there's a scene that involves skydiving. And it was really hard to follow because they like have the camera like up in each other's chest, and it's like they're fighting, and you really don't see everything that's going on. Like someone's hand would start off frame and they would start doing something, and then they would bring it into focus, and they would finish the action, and then they would start with another hand and it would finish whatever it was doing off frame. It was very tight in on what was going on, and it was difficult to understand what was going on because it was so tight in. So that was kind of difficult, but I mean, all in all, and I should say, I think they were doing that because the special effects of that scene were not very good. It didn't look very good. So maybe they were doing it to hide, or at least distract from some of the special effects elements that just weren't really up to par. Either way, though, it's fine. These are me being a little nitpicky. Ultimately, this is a good film. I really did like it. It's a good story. It's a little unoriginal, but it's bolstered by just great acting. The minor disputes I have with the editing and the directing and whatnot are more than made up by the choreography, the fights, and the gun scenes, and the strong dialogue and chemistry and character dynamic put forth by these actors and these characters that just are really superb together and really shine on screen together. So I really did like it. If, like I said, if you are looking for just a good action film, that you don't really have to do too much thinking about, and that you can just make some popcorn and chill on the couch with your friends or with a significant other or whatnot. This is a good movie for that. Ultimately, it comes in at a 7 out of 10 for me. I liked it better than Thor: Love and Thunder. I thought it was better put together, had a better plot, and while it was simple, like I said, it's not going to win any awards. It is worth a watch. I do recommend it if you already have a Netflix account. I wouldn't go out and get a Netflix account just to watch this movie, but if you have one, it's worth watching. Thank you all so much for watching this. I do appreciate your time. If you're not going to stick around for the spoiler section and you're just going to choose to end this video here, then I will see you in the next one. Hopefully see you next week when we do our list of 5 good things and 5 bad things about Doctor Strange. But again, thank you so much for spending your time and supporting the channel. Please do hit that like and subscribe button. Please do share this with your friends. I'm really excited to see where this channel can go, but we can't get there without your guys' help. So I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I will let you go. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. I will see you next week, and the spoiler section will start now. Okay, and we are back. So this is the spoiler section. If you missed the alarms and the warnings, final warning, this is the spoiler section. There's a lot that happens in this movie that we are going to talk about, specifically 5-ish scenes that really kind of make up the vast majority of the plot line. Excuse me, starting with the opening scene. So we open up in 2005, where Ryan Gosling's character, I don't think he's actually given a name. We only know him as Sierra 6 throughout the whole movie. I don't think they actually say his name in this opening scene. But we open up with Billy Bob Thornton's character Fitzroy recruiting Gosling from prison, essentially saying you're not going to do your prison time because you wouldn't get out, you wouldn't even be eligible parole until 2031. So we're going to commute your sentence. You're going to come work for the CIA. And that's kind of what we know about the Sierra program, is that they're criminals that weren't going to get out for a long time. The CIA took them on, and now they're freelance assassins for the CIA. Not freelance, they're committed privatized assassins by the CIA. We cut 18 years later, so it's 2023 from 2005, and Gosling's character, Sierra 6, is in Bangkok. Ana de Armas' character, Danny Miranda, provides him with something. He goes to a room, and he's given communications to Regé Jean Page's character, which is Carmichael, who's in Langley. Excuse me. And he's told that he's got a target to assassinate. He's given no information, and it becomes apparent that he's never really given any information. So that, I mean, we get a couple things. The scene's important. It's the opening scene. It really sets the background information that we need to know about the Sierra program with the CIA. And then it sets Gosling's character up, because Gosling is told to kill a target. He hesitates because there's a child in the room and he's afraid that he'll get collateral damage. Carmichael says that he's cleared to take out the target even with the collateral, and Gosling decides not to do it. He claims the weapon is jammed or out of bullets, and then he initiates a fire alarm to get everyone moving and tries to kill the target single-handedly, which is important. It tells us a couple things about Gosling's character. One, even though his superiors don't care about at least children, he does. He wants to try and get as little collateral damage as possible, and he's not afraid to go hand-to-hand against a target if it means preventing the loss of quote-unquote innocent life, or at least the unnecessary killing of bystanders. So he is skilled. It does show him, skillfully taking out the target's bodyguards and then going up against the target himself, which turns out to be Sierra 4. So he's part of the same program as Gosling is, and they get thrown out of the building and land in a giant stack of firework mortar cannons, you know, the things that launch the big fireworks that you see in like 4th of July things, except for they were much bigger. They're basically cannons. And this actually gave us a kind of a cool fight. The setting of being in these like canisters where all these fireworks are shooting off is actually, it's visually cool. There's a bunch of like lights going off from the shells, but it's also used in the fight itself, with them having to fight around these cannons, and Gosling actually getting a shot to hit the Sierra 4's face, causing him to get injured. And so it's a cool fight and visually appealing. But they end up talking. 6 beats him in the fight, and 4's dying. And with his last breath, he says, "The reason you were sent after me is because I have intel on Carmichael." Carmichael's the guy who's running the op, and he says, "You need to you do this. You give him hell, and it'll be worth what I did." So he passes the intel off to him, and that really kind of sets the conflict here. Carmichael calls 6 when Ana de Armas's team comes in and says, "We don't have any intel. It's missing." So Carmichael calls 6 and like, "What, you want to tell me something here?" 6 doesn't tell him what he wants to hear, and kind of asks him some questions, and that really sets the conflict moving forward. 6 calls Fitzroy, the guy who recruited him, Billy Bob Thornton's character, and tells him that he's in trouble. Billy Bob Thornton gives him some information on a airport just outside of Bangkok, and that he'll get him out. Sierra 6 mails the intelligence, so that way it's not on his person. And then we cut to Carmichael complaining that the Sierra program should have been botched. This is why he wanted one of his guys to go in instead of a Sierra 6, which, yeah, if you send a Sierra to kill a Sierra, you're afraid they might talk to each other. Yeah, you shouldn't have sent them in. I mean, it's a little hinky to me. I'm like, oh, that's what a way to artificially propel the plot forward. But hey, we already said it's not a perfect movie. It's just fun action film, so we'll let it play. Fitzroy tells 6 to go to an airport. Carmichael sends Jessica Henwick's character, Suzanne Brewer, to meet with Chris Evans' character, who he has already contacted and told of the problem. And we really get a sense of just the moral decrepitness of Chris Evans' character. The first time we see him, he's torturing a guy and definitely looking like he's enjoying it. When the phone rings, he's like, "Guys, how many times I've told you, silence your phones when I'm working?" Then they tell him it's his, and he begrudgingly stops torturing the guy to go answer the phone. He's told about Sierra 6. And, you know, things go off. Susanna Brewer, which is Henwick's character, is sent to liaise with him, to quote unquote sit on him. I don't know what he expected things to happen, but yeah, when he messes up, Carmichael blames Brewer instead of blaming the psychopath that he put on the trail. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like I said, Page does a really good job of making you hate his character, and so it just kind of setting things up for the next movie, I think. But Carmichael also calls Ana de Armas' character, Danny Miranda, and calls her to Berlin instead of going back to her station, saying he's going to debrief her. So this opening like 10 to 15 minutes really sets up what's going on for the rest of the movie, as a good opening scene should. And I appreciated it, even if it was a little hectic. It was jumping from scene to scene. And this is one of those ones where I was like, we don't care that Chris Evans' character is in Monaco. I don't need Monaco in large print on my screen to tell me that he's somewhere in a basement torturing a guy. It's just kind of unnecessary, but I mean, okay, whatever you want to do. The next scene of real significance is what I'm referring to as the airplane scene. So 6 gets to the airplane that Fitzroy tells him about. Hanson, which is Chris Evans' character, finds Fitzroy, tells him that he has kidnapped his niece and that he needs to know where 6 is. So Fitzroy calls the guys who have picked Sierra 6 up, and he tells them, "That guy that I asked you to go to escort out of the country, I need you to kill him now." And he says, "I need you to do it painlessly." The guy says, "Are you sure?" He says, "Yes." So he hangs up the phone. The 5 definitely former, you know, special forces guys gather up, and they're gonna go kill Sierra 6. What's funny is the special forces guys are like grabbing their guns, and the team leader's like, no, we're gonna use knives. I'm like, what? Why are you gonna use knives? The guy's sleeping in the back. Just go put a cap in him. Fitzroy asked you to make it painless, so you're gonna pull a knife out. For those of you who are not self-defense inclined, knives are not as effective as guns. It's not a video game where you get melee in and it does like triple the damage of an entire mag of an assault rifle. Knives are not as good at killing people as guns are. So when a guy tells you, yeah, make it painless, that doesn't mean use a less effective weapon. It means make it as quick and efficient as possible. But they're going to go use knives because, for obvious reasons, Sierra 6 needs a chance to beat these guys up and escape. And he does so in spectacular fashion, so much so that it just crashes the plane. The fight choreography is honestly very, very good. I did like it. It's imaginative. There's a point where he pulls a couple flares to create kind of like a smoke screen to give himself an advantage. It is visually appealing. The choreography is very good. And at a certain point, the plane explodes. And this is what leads to that scene I complained about in the non-spoiler section about the camera being like really up close and you not really being able to tell what's happening because the hands are all moving all over the screen and out of focus and everything, or off frame rather. But it's a cool sequence. He hits the ground and he immediately calls Fitzroy. He's like, hey, I'm a little emotionally upset with you right now. Can you tell me what's going on? Fitzroy levels with him completely, tells him they've got my niece, and then Hansen's character takes on. And the dialogue between these three in the scene is oh, it's beautiful. This is where they really kind of the dialogue and the dynamic and the chemistry between the characters really shows off. Because while Billy Bob Thornton and Chris Evans are in a vehicle together, Gosling Sierra 6 is completely elsewhere, and they're not even in the same place. But they're talking on the phone, and it's they're just picking up on each other. It's like this really witty kind of, I don't trust you, I don't really like you, and I, what you're saying doesn't really make sense. It's a good scene, and I really appreciated it. And I mean, Gosling just kind of acts like, yeah, jumped out of an exploding plane, it must be Tuesday. I mean, he doesn't really play it off as being like all that ridiculous that he just survived a 5-man hit team in an exploding plane. He's just like, yeah, so I'm a little upset, but otherwise, I'm fine. And they move on. This kind of leads to a flashback scene where Gosling is thinking or is remembering when he first met Claire, who is Billy Bob Thornton's niece, Fitzroy's niece. It goes back to, and it introduces Alfre Woodard's character, Cahill, who is station chief in the UK. And they kind of talk about how Claire's in danger, and just for a few days while they figure out a security plan, they're going to send 6 in to protect her. And this scene, this flashback scene, it's a, I'm going to call it one scene. It's really kind of a couple of them put together, but I'm just going to refer to it collectively as the flashback scene. Is really good. This is the best moment of character dynamic and character development and growth and sincerity that we get in the whole movie, which is why I gave props to Butters, the Julie Butters, who played Claire. It is a nice kind of reprieve from the nonstop action of the rest of the movie, where 6 and this, 12, 13-year-old girl, maybe 14, are kind of having this witty, conversation of, yeah, these things. They kind of get to know each other. It's objectively said that Fitzroy, when 6 says Fitzroy is the closest thing that he has to family, Claire kind of says, well, I guess that kind of makes us family. And 6 just kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll accept that. One of the better scenes, or one of the better parts of the scene, rather, is when she notices that he's got a tattoo of the word Sisyphus on his forearm, which, if you don't know the Greek myth of Sisyphus, essentially Sisyphus cheated death. And for punishment, when he died again, because you can only cheat death so many times before it actually catches up to you. But as punishment for cheating death, Zeus condemns him to pushing a giant rock up a mountain. And whenever he gets to the top, it just falls back down and he has to start from ground zero and push it all up again. And through this conversation, you kind of get the idea that Sierra 6 really relates to that. He's saying, yeah, he gets continually pushes the rock up the hill. And Claire says, does he ever get there? And then rather than saying, yeah, but then it falls back down, 6 says, I'll let you know. Meaning that 6 really kind of identifies himself with Sisyphus. It kind of gives us the idea that he cheated his punishment when the CIA let him out of prison, so he kind of feels like he cheated his fate. But in return, he's continuously having to do this work for the CIA, and he has no idea when they're going to let him stop, or if they'll let him stop. He has no idea when he's going to get that rock to the top. So that kind of really gives us the really only insight into Six's personality, other than he doesn't like collateral damage, and he kind of has this nice emotional connection with Claire and with Fitzroy. So I like that part. I think that was the part of the movie where I was like, okay, this is better than 6.0. I think that was the one that scene was like, okay, good. There's some emotional weight to this guy. I think this, if as long as nothing screws up, this will be a 7 out of 10 movie. So that's nice. It is said that part of the reason why Claire needs constant protection is because she actually has a pacemaker. Later on in the scene, her pacemaker starts to fail and he has to rush her to the hospital, where it is not spoken directly to him, but he's around it. And it said, yes, we're fixing the malfunction. We're going to give you guys the serial number, and you can actually go online and track, not one, where the pacemaker is, GPS location at all times, and 2, if it's functioning properly. So it's a nice little, slip in that, hey, this pacemaker can be used to find Claire and rescue her in the present day. So there you go. That's how he's going to solve the situation. He's going to track Claire down, rescue her, and kill Hansen if he's around. So it's not. So this scene serves double purpose. One, to build an emotional connection between Six and Fitzroy and Claire, and also to show us how he's going to solve the situation. So we cut back to modern. Well, I'm sorry, no, we don't cut back to modern day quite yet. The end of that flashback sequence is her returning home, and him telling her to go to bed after realizing that the cameras around the house have been shut off. And so he has to engage an assassin that is clearly coming for Claire. And he does so in spectacular fashion while she's playing a record really loudly. Silver Bird is playing by Mark Lindsay. Got that in my notes. Yeah. So she starts playing this really loud record while he just beats the snot out of this assassin and kills him with his bare hands. And then she comes out and sees that there's the guy the guy he kills falls behind a wall, but his boots are still leading out from the wall while he's on the ground, and she notices, and he just says, everything's fine, it's just another Thursday, go back to bed. And and she's just like, okay, clearly knowing that he just saved her life, really for the second time. Him rushing her to the hospital and then directly killing a guy who meant to kill her, really cemented that connection. So now we cut back to the present day. He goes to see a document forger in Vienna, obviously to get a new ID so that we can cleanly pass through the countries. And the document forger captures him using a trap door, and then contacts Hansen, because Hansen put out like a many millions of dollars bounty on him. It's not ever said how many millions, but the document forger says there's 7 zeros behind it. So we know it's at least 10 million, somewhere between 10 and 99 million. So he captures him, alerts Hansen. Hansen and his team are the closest, so they go in for him. And while he's figuring out a way to escape, we cut to Carmichael and Danny Miranda, who Carmichael's like, yeah, you want to tell me anything? You didn't realize Six was going to go rogue here. How could you not have known? You were part of his group. She's like, I just met him. How could I have known? He didn't say anything. I wasn't given a whole lot of information on the op, other than we needed to collect some intel. I don't know him very well. And he basically threatens her career because he's an arrogant little prick. I apologize. I don't mean to sound grotesque here, but no, Paige did a really good job of making me hate his character. Man, he's a dick. And he just kind of threatens Ana de Armas' career. But then he gets a text in the middle of their meeting, and it's from Hansen saying that Six is in Vienna. Ana de Armas' character Miranda reads the reflection off of his glasses. He says, "Don't go anywhere. We have more to discuss." She immediately leaves the room and goes to Vienna. And we cut back to Hansen's team entering the facility. And he says, "Where is Six?" And the document forger goes, "Where's my money?" And Hansen just wastes no time, puts like 4 bullets into his chest, and searches the premises for Six. I mean, just the lack of emotion on this is just like, oh, okay, you made that decision easy for me, and just shoots him, and it's over. Like I said, I really liked Chris Evans' portrayal in this movie. Six makes a miraculous escape. I'm not gonna. I know this is the spoiler section. You guys have probably already seen the movie, but I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to be able to discuss it in grand enough detail. So you guys, you go figure out how he escapes yourself. But essentially, he kills everyone but Hansen, who has him up against the wall. And Hansen's like, "Where's the intel?" And Gosling's like, "Oh, hold on." It's like, "Is this it?" And he just holds up a grenade pin that he's pulled, and there's a grenade on the floor. And Hansen goes, "Ballsy!" I mean, I really liked Chris Evans' character. I'm sorry, I know this is like a little bit more detail than probably is necessary, but I really liked Chris Evans' acting in this character. He's just like, "Ballsy!" and runs, and they split up, and Gosling jumps through a window, and then a grenade goes off, and he starts walking, and Hansen just immediately catches up with him. I mean, Gosling wasn't even running. He's just like, "Oh, that hurt," and he just starts walking away. Hansen's like, "Really, dude? Did you think that was gonna get me?" But then Miranda shoots shoots Hansen in the butt with a tranquilizer dart, knocking him out, and then goes to Six and says, "They think I'm involved. You're gonna go clear my name. Let's go to Berlin." Tranks him and puts him in the trunk of a car. And that's kind of the end of that scene. That's how they get out of that scene. Six wakes up in the car a little bit later and tells her what's going on. Tells her, "Yeah, I had this I figured out Carmichael's dirty. I don't have all the documents because it was encrypted, but I know it's showing him doing some shady stuff. I sent it to someone in Prague. Will you go with me to do that? So that way we can bring this guy down, because the guy that we were sent to kill was a Sierra, and I believe him. There's no one who could have faked that." So so Miranda agrees. They go to Prague. Hansen goes back to Fitzroy and tortures him to find out where he's going next. They find a video camera image of Six mailing the intel, and all they can really make out on the document is that it's going to Prague. So Hansen tortures Fitzroy to find out who on earth he would be going to go see in Prague. And the torture sequence is good. I mean, for a torture sequence, Fitzroy clearly doesn't care what happens to himself. Hansen pulls out 2 fingernails at Fitzroy, and he's just like, "Yeah, do it some more. Give it some more. You're not gonna get anything out of me." Then he's like, "Okay, maybe we should bring Claire back in." And that almost immediately eviscerates Fitzroy's resolve. That was the thing. That happened twice. Not once, but twice. Just threatening Claire makes Fitzroy kind of buckle. And while that makes sense, and it's the only way to move the plot forward, it just kind of made Fitzroy look a little bit like a wimp. I know they built, like, they showed that he could definitely resist torture to himself, but it's almost like you say Claire, and it's almost like a magic word. He's just like, "Oh, thank you for saying please. Yes, I will give you the intel." I would have preferred to see a little bit more like emotion and begrudging out of him. I would have preferred him to have at least like kind of like wrestled with himself about the issue, just for the sake of, if you build Fitzroy up and you make him seem strong, then it gives credibility to Hansen being just that more diabolical and being just that more effective at getting information out of people. Whereas it's just like, yeah, he rolled over pretty quickly. My job's easy. I don't need that much skill to do it. I just have to be a psychopath. I would have preferred a little bit more build up to that. That's all. That's my really only complaint about any of the acting in this whole movie is just Fitzroy just rolls over like a dog anytime Claire's name is brought up. I would have preferred just a little bit more resistance. But essentially the plot moves forward. Hansen sends all these wet work teams to Prague. He doesn't go himself. He just sends a bunch of wet work teams to Prague to the address of Cahill, who is in Prague. She's the one that Six sent the intel to. And we get a nice moment between Cahill, Miranda, and Six, where it's discovered that she is dying from cancer. And she's like, if you say one word of sympathy, I'll cut your head off or something like that, giving us the dynamic between the two, that they're they trust each other. They've kind of got some past, but they're not necessarily just sentimental people. She is able to crack the encryption on the intel because she's a former station chief in UK, and she knows what to do and yada yada yada, and she just knows how to do it. And we get some vague, uninteresting, this is some shadow government stuff. Carmichael's not doing this for the U.S. He's there's some deep state that he's serving. Kind of vague, really uninteresting. The plot really doesn't do anything with it. It just kind of explains how Carmichael moved up in the ranks of the CIA so effectively, is that he's working for some really powerful, shady individuals, either within the government or out of the government, that kind of control things. It's just, like I said, there's a lot of this movie that doesn't really pay off in itself. It kind of seems to set up future movies, if they in fact move forward doing sequels or a franchise, or however many they're going to work with here. Just vague, little uninteresting, little cliche, but it gets the job done. So he figures it out. He decrypts the intel, and now he's got a magic bullet to use against Carmichael, right as all the wet work teams show up and start shooting the place up. Spoiler, we're in the spoiler section. Why am I saying spoiler alert? He escapes, partially because Cahill blows herself up. She had cancer. She only had a couple months to live, so she sacrifices herself to kill a bunch of the operators. And this leads to a pretty spectacular gunfight in a plaza in Prague, where like I said earlier when I started in the non-spoiler section, when I'm talking about the gunfights and how they look really tactical and it makes everyone look like they've had some training, this is where you get to see that. This is like a 3-faction gunfight between these mercenary groups, Sierra 6, and the Prague police, and it really adds to the from the guys moving to cover and fanning out in a firing line, trying to suppress the cops, and the cops trying to counter that and get everyone protected, and Six trying to take cover from behind his bench and shoot everyone. It just, when you do this, when you have these situations where it really looks like a military force that knows what they're doing, you add credibility to the villains, and that adds credibility to Six, who has to figure out a way to get out of the situation. It's not like, you're going up against a bunch of hoodlums who stood in the street, without their belt, pointing their Glock sideways, and all it really took was knowing how to shoot, because all you need to do is drop one of them and they were definitely going to run away. It's not like that. It's these are hardened wet work guys, and when Six takes them out, it adds credibility to Six. It doesn't detract from the story, which is just important whenever it's important when we talk about these movies like the last Star Wars movies that just don't make sense. It really just makes the First Order in Episode 8 look really, really stupid and really, really ridiculous, and you're kind of wondering why these guys are such a big threat, because legitimately every time they set a trap, it doesn't work. So you don't have that problem in this film. Everyone moves tactically. The gunmen are a very viable threat. The police are a very competent response team, and it really aids to the cunning and the skill of Sierra 6 when he's able to escape from that situation with the help of with the help of Danny Miranda, which is Ana de Armas' character. But while trying to go to a hospital in order to track Claire's pacemaker, because I'm sorry, backtrack. The forger, when he went to the forger for those documents, he was also able to have the forger use the information that he had to get the serial number of Claire's pacemaker so that way he could track it. Apologies, I missed that part. So anyway, after this gunfight, they go to a veterinarian hospital, and that's where he gets stitched up. But then they actually have to sneak into a hospital in order to find Claire's pacemaker. Why couldn't they do the same thing? I don't honestly know. They could have gone to the same location. I don't really know why they needed to go to the veterinary hospital. That wasn't something that I thought of when I watched this movie. I'm just now thinking of that as I'm like, huh, they were going to a hospital anyway. I'm not sure why they stopped and used like mouthwash as an antiseptic when they were going to a hospital. That doesn't really matter. It's just weird. But anyway, while they're at the hospital finding the information for Claire, they're attacked by the lone operator that's left after the battle and after the shootout in Prague. They're just like, there's only one guy left tracking them down. He is able to get the intel from them, which is just kept in like a gold medallion like case thing. So he just grabs it. It's like a necklace. He grabs it from him, and he escapes, and he gets to Hansen, and he gives it to him. And then Hansen is like, God bless the man, give him the money and whatnot. And here's the final showdown. This is the final scene of the movie, where Danny Miranda grabs like an RPG, like several grenade launchers and a rifle, and just one-man armies this castle, which is, by the way, a really cool setting for this final shutdown. They go to like this chateau. I imagine in France. I'm sure they said it in big bold letters, but I can't remember it for whatever reason. But it was like this really nice chateau that they go to, and it's a really cool setup, or a really cool location for the final battle. And she just like destroys everything. There's so many explosions. There's a sniper shooting at her, and she outsnipes the sniper with a grenade launcher. And while I find that utterly ridiculous, it was also pretty cool. This is what I mean when I say that Ana de Armas' character is not that like kind-hearted, charismatic, kind-hearted person that she was in like Blade Runner 2049 or Knives Out. No, she's an action heroine in this movie. She's just bombing everything, shooting everything, causes a wonderful distraction for Six to slip in and rescue Fitzroy and Claire, or at least gets to them. Hansen finds out, or he deduces rather, that Miranda's character is trying to lead them away, and he runs back to try and cut Six and Fitzroy and Claire off. This leads to a group of guys with him getting in a gun battle with those three, and Fitzroy being shot and killed, and Fitzroy sacrificing himself to draw them in with a grenade, which kills Hansen's fire team, while Claire and Six jump off the roof into the water. This reduces the number of combatants, essentially, because Miranda finishes the rest of everybody off, and then Six kills like one more guy. But it's essentially just Claire and Six and Hansen and Miranda, and then Suzanne Brewer, which is Jessica Henwick's character, who really didn't have much to do with the fighting, but kind of just hangs back and lets everything kind of happen around her. But essentially, it's just these 5 people left in the chateau. Miranda sets up a sniping position. Hansen gets Claire and drags her into a hedge maze. Six goes in after her, and this leads to a final confrontation between Hansen and Six, where Hansen essentially says, I'll let the girl go, but I want to hand-to-hand fight you. I think I'm better than you, and I want to prove it. So Six and Hansen have this fight in the middle of the hedge maze with this big fountain, and Six is definitely better than Hansen is. And then Hansen says, "Fine, well you can't block a knife," and they start going at each other with a knife. And still Six is better than Hansen. He gets a couple cuts, but they're just slashes. By the way, slashes don't kill people. If you have a little knife and you cut some skin and everything, a little like quarter-inch slash isn't going to kill anyone. It takes a lot of force and a lot of penetration to really do any damage to anyone's torso, and you're just not going to get that with a slash. So if you ever watch a movie and like people go down after being just slashed on like the chest or something, they're not dead. The movie wants you to believe they're dead because it's cinematic, that you have these wide arcing strikes that just cut people down. Those don't kill. That's one of my that's always what I find funny whenever I'm like, that's a flesh wound, and the guy just falls over and stops moving whenever you watch like sword fights and stuff. I don't know. Sorry, I'm digressing. But anyway, it's a good fight. Choreography is really good. Six does eventually get the upper hand and puts Hansen in a chokehold with his forearm. That's also a pet peeve. I'm sorry, I'm getting really into pet peeves about fight scenes. The proper way to put someone in a chokehold is not to hold their airway with your forearm. That doesn't actually do anything. I mean, it'll obstruct their airway, but you can go like 1 to 3 minutes with your airway being obstructed and still remain conscious. So when you see people in movies doing like chokeholds, and you can very clearly tell that their throat is resting up against a forearm, that's not an effective way to do a chokehold. The way chokeholds work is you get their chin in the crook of your elbow, and then you hug them. And when you hug them, the bicep and the forearm cut off the blood flow from the arteries on your neck, and that cuts off the blood flow to your brain, and you can put someone unconscious anywhere from 6 to 20 seconds when you do that, or 6 to 10 seconds. I can't always remember, but that's how you do a choke. So if you're ever watching a movie and you see someone putting your forearm on their neck, that's not correct. Movies oftentimes teach that because it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't actually choke someone out. It can just give the simulation that someone is being choked out. But that's not actually how it works. And so now that I know that, because I've done I've done a handful of jiu-jitsu courses, and I train jiu-jitsu once a week, I've just been noticing how often movies get chokeholds wrong. And it's funny to me. I noticed it. I am getting a little pet peeve here. It's just kind of a funny thing that I wanted to point out. But essentially, he gets him in a chokehold, but he's not actually the one who kills him. The one who kills him is Brewer, Jessica Henwick's character. She walks up at the end of this fight and just shoots Chris Evans' character, Hansen, and he dies in the fountain. And then she's like, "Good job. I'm going to take you in now, and I'm going to keep Claire, and you're going to work for me now." And so that's kind of how things end. Essentially, he's too beaten up to fight Brewer. Brewer's got the upper hand because she's got reinforcements coming in, so she's gonna apprehend Miranda and Claire, and she's gonna use Claire as blackmail against Six, so that way Six operates for her. And that's kind of where we think the movie's gonna end. There's a cutaway scene where Joe Russo, who's one of the directors, he always does or it's either Joe or Anthony, I can't remember which one. I think it's Joe. But Joe always has a little cameo in most of the movies and projects that he does. So he's a part of this disciplinary committee that basically has Carmichael, Brewer, and Miranda at a big table and says, "You guys are exonerated. We are blaming Hansen for going rogue and stealing money, and you guys, we're going to say you did nothing wrong," which is what Brewer wanted. That was the whole plan that she concocted when she shot Hansen and told Six that you're going to work for me now. We're going to blame it on him. and we're going to go back to doing business as normal. Because the intel has been destroyed. During the shootout, Hansen destroyed the intel that they have on Carmichael. So Carmichael's safe. He gets to be a dick for at least one more movie. He and Miranda have a moment where Miranda says, if you ever hurt Claire, I will kill you. I won't have to wait for 6. I will kill you. Which obviously sets up that Miranda and 6 are going to be allies in the next movie. And then Brewer is taking Carmichael to meet with 6, and he's Carmichael's like, you should have shot him. You're playing with fire. And she goes, this man killed 30 of the best wet work operatives in the whole world. I'm not going to waste an asset like that. Carmichael has a really douchey line where he's like, I don't appreciate you thinking for yourself, or something like that. That's not a direct quote, but he's essentially like, it's not a good idea for you to start thinking for yourself. Oh gosh, he is such a dick. God, credit to Paige for making me hate his character so much. I despise his character because of the way he treats everyone else. He is a very arrogant, egotistical, blind ambition operative. And man, I can't wait for him to get his comeuppance. And honestly, anyone could kill this guy and it would be great. Brewer could turn on him and it would be poetic justice. Miranda could kill him and it would just be fulfillment of what she said she would do. 6 could kill him and it would again kind of be justice for causing all these issues. In the next movie, Carmichael could be done in by literally anyone and it would be beautiful. It would be amazing. And wouldn't it be like a season 8 ending to Game of Thrones where everyone's like, why is he get the Iron Throne? Oh, I don't know. They gave a reason, but there's 100 different other people that it would have made more sense to. No, Carmichael could be killed by anybody, and it would make sense. But essentially, they go to C6, who, of course, has broken out of military confinement, killed a couple MPs, or I hope he didn't kill them. Whenever I see MPs in a film, which is military police, I always kind of hope they don't get killed, because they're just, they're soldiers. They're guys who signed up to protect their country. I hope they're just sleeping. I hope they're just sleeping and they're going to wake up soon. Maybe they had a nice little dream about a farm that all my fish went to, and all my former pets went to, and they're just happy living, bouncing in the field. They didn't really die. That's what I'm going to hope. He just knocked out the military police. He didn't actually kill them. But he escapes the confinement of the military police. He finds where Claire is. She's being held in a household. And there's a cool moment where there's a record that shows up in Claire's bedroom that just says "Play Me Loud." It is Silver Birds, the same record that we saw in the flashback scene, and you just hear gunfire and pounding and all this stuff, and then 6 walks in the room and rescues Claire, and we fade out with them driving down a dirt roadway. It's a good ending. It definitely sets things up for the second film, which most of the movie did. Almost every act ended with something that could be used to set up another film. The only sad thing is Chris Evans' character is dead. We won't get to see him anymore, which he was such a cool character. But honestly, this movie, maybe not this movie, but future movies could have done without as many characters that they had. The screen time had to be set up, really delicately balanced to give everyone some time to discuss their lines and everything. And with Carmichael probably going to be the new antagonist of the next film, it's probably a good thing that Chris Evans' character was dead. Fitzroy, also a good thing that he's probably dead. Although without Cahill or Fitzroy, we won't get to, bank on the ability for all of them to be well connected throughout the world. That's probably where Ana de Armas' character will come in, because she's still with the CIA. So maybe she'll get to a position where she can pull some strings and assist 6 moving forward. But all in all, it ends well. Claire is rescued. 6 is still shown to be a bad egg. The scenes are set for Carmichael to be a problem. Jessica Henwick's character is starting to get her own autonomy. Ana de Armas' character is still very much in the fight. And I really appreciated this movie. Like I said, it's not winning any awards. It's not the best movie ever made, but it's fun. It's very self-aware. It knows what it is. It's a popcorn flick. It's an action movie. It doesn't try to be anything superiorly deep or anything like that. It just builds good chemistry between its actors. It has great dialogue between the characters, and it just shows us a good time. So I do recommend you guys watch it if you haven't already. If you're watching the spoiler section, I kind of assume that you guys have watched the movie. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. But we're going to end the review here with a 7 out of 10, as I said in the spoiler-free section. We will be back with a movie review in 2 weeks, but next week we are going to do a list of 5 good things and 5 bad things about Doctor Strange, because I just don't want to watch that movie again and do a full review over that. It's not a bad movie. It's just not a great movie, and so I just don't want to watch it again. We're just going to do a short 5 good things and 5 bad things about it, maybe like 15, 20 minutes for the sake of variety. But you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you again for spending time watching this film, or watching this breakdown of this, and me prattle on for, oh my goodness, over an hour. We'll see if this is still over an hour whenever I edit it down. But thank you guys very much. There's a lot of things you could be doing with your time. It means so much that you spend it here. If you like this content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, share it with everyone, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.